And now let's take a look at what's happening in the country of Georgia. Its citizens have been protesting for days over a controversial new law. The protest came to a head yesterday. Demonstrators tried to storm the parliament building. Molotov cocktails and petrol bombs were thrown at the police. The police hit back with tear gas and water cannons. It was utter chaos. So what is this new law that has left citizens incensed? It says NGOs and media outlets that receive significant foreign funds must declare themselves as foreign agents. Critics say this law is right out of the Kremlin's playbook. Remember, Georgia, a nation of 3.7 million, lies at Russia's border. It's a former Soviet state and the birthplace of the infamous Joseph Stalin. At present, polls say a majority of its citizens dream of joining the EU and NATO. But the new law would pull Georgia away from the West and align it to Russia. This is said to have brought Georgians to the streets. Here's more.
Georgia is the latest nation at war with itself. Thousands gathered in the capital, Tbilisi, to protest a controversial new law. They tried to enter Georgia's parliament building, where the government was approving the first draft of the Transparency of Foreign Influence law. The protesters clashed with riot police. The confrontation grew violent. Protesters threw stones, petrol bombs, and even Molotov cocktails at the police. The police in turn hit the demonstrators with water cannons and tear gas. Why did the protests escalate to such a degree? Because Georgians feel the law is inspired by Russia and takes them further away from Europe, and the citizens weren't having it.
They applied it without us knowing anything, and right now we're back here to protest it until we don't see any changes about it. And the law is Russian, as we all know. It has been implemented in Russia, it has been implemented in Belarus, and we don't want to be part of ex-Soviet Union. We want to be part of European Union, we want to be pro-West.
I came here because I know that my country belongs to Europe, but my government doesn't understand it. And we believe that this is a part of the big play. This is Russia's play. And Putin is facing damage in Ukraine, and they want to gain something here. So we are here to protect our country because we don't want to be part of Russia again.
We need to fight against the rights to be European. So here am I, because for my child's future, I prefer to be a part of the European society.
First, let's understand the situation in Georgia. It was part of the Soviet Union and gained independence in 1991. These are Georgia's official borders. These two areas are breakaway regions that have limited international recognition. Russia is one of the only 5 countries that recognizes them as sovereign nations. In 2008, Russia even fought a war with Georgia over control of South Ossetia, which explains why a majority of the Georgian people would want closer ties with Europe. Polls say about 80% of the population wants closer ties with the West. Joining the EU and NATO is even enshrined in Georgia's constitution. But the contentious new law is considered a return to the Soviet era. Last week, the Georgian government and opposition lawmakers got into a brawl in parliament. Georgia's president has said she will veto the bill if it comes to her. But despite the law's unpopularity, Georgia's ruling party is trying to push it through. Georgia's new draft is similar to a law Russia passed in 2012. It allowed the Kremlin to crack down on critical media outlets and civil society groups. The fears are that Georgia will follow the same course. Georgia's new law targets NGOs and independent media outlets. If they get 20% or more of their funding from abroad, they must register themselves as foreign agents. The term agent is synonymous with spy in most former Soviet nations. Critics say this is a tactic to discredit voices critical of the government. The draft law has been panned by the West. EU Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell has said that the draft legislation was incompatible with EU values and standards. The EU embassy in Georgia described Tuesday's vote as a dark day for Georgia's democracy. Georgia's foreign agent bill isn't a law yet, but the government has the numbers to push it through.